She had no dowry, no beauty they admired, and no reason for an earl to even look her way. Yet, on the night she was humiliated before all of London, the earl rose from his seat, walked through the crowd, and offered her his hand, a gesture that would scandalize the entire empire and ruin him forever. Because the Earl of Ravenshire did not save women, he destroyed them. So why did he choose her? The night everything began with the Earl of Wickham had grown used to blending into the edges of rooms. It was safer there. People who stood in the center of ballrooms, girls with dowries, titles, and expensive gowns, could afford to be seen. She could not. Lady Markham's winter soirée was no exception. Elora stood quietly near a column, holding a glass she had barely sipped from, trying not to look as out of place as she felt. The orchestra played softly, couples swirled on polished floors, and the scent of lilacs and French perfume drifted through the air. She had come because her aunt insisted. "You must show your face, Elora," her aunt had said. "If people forget you entirely, you'll never find a match." A match. The word tasted bitter. Elora had no dowry, no estate, no family wealth. Her father had squandered everything before his death, leaving Elora with nothing but a surname that used to matter. Society knew all of this. They remembered well enough when it was convenient to mock her, to gossip, to remind her of her fall. That evening was no different. She heard them long before she saw them. Lady Clarissa Morland and her two friends, whispering and laughing behind their fans. Clarissa had always been beautiful, always been admired, and always been cruel. She was the type of woman who could ruin a reputation with a single raised eyebrow. "Elora Wickham is here," Clarissa whispered loudly enough for Elora to hear. Her friends tittered. "She must be desperate," one said. "Or delusional," another added. Elora pretended not to hear, though the words burned. She told herself she was used to this. She told herself their opinions did not matter. She told herself many things that were only partly true. And then Clarissa stepped closer. "Well, Elora," she said sweetly, "I've noticed no one has approached you yet. How lonely that must feel." The comment was disguised as concern, but her smile gave away the malice beneath it. "I'm quite all right here," Elora replied evenly. "But my dear, you cannot stand in corners forever," Clarissa said. "Perhaps I should help you gentlemen." Her voice rose, sharp and bright. "Is anyone willing to offer Miss Wickham a dance?" The room fell awkwardly silent. Men looked away. Some whispered. Others simply pretended they had not heard. Clarissa's friends giggled behind their hands. Elora felt her stomach twist. Her palms were damp. Her throat tightened. She hated this. Being displayed, mocked, humiliated, like some spectacle for entertainment. "I think that's enough," she said quietly, trying to move past Clarissa. But Clarissa stepped in front of her again, her expression victorious. "Oh, come now. Surely someone will be kind enough to—" "I will." The voice came from behind her, deep, steady, and unmistakably authoritative. Everything stopped. Conversations halted. Even the music seemed to fade. Elora turned slowly, unsure she had heard correctly. Standing only a few steps away was the Earl of Ravenshire. He was not a man one could easily overlook. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in stark black, with a gaze that seemed to cut straight through people. Society called him many things: aloof, intimidating, dangerous, but no one called him kind. And yet here he was. His attention was fixed entirely on her. "Miss Wickham," he said, inclining his head slightly, "would you care to dance?" The shock in the room was palpable. Clarissa's mouth opened and closed, as though she had forgotten how to speak. Elora felt her heart thudding painfully. The Earl of Ravenshire, asking her. She searched his expression for mockery, for pity, for any sign that this was a cruel jest. She found none. His face was calm, unreadable, but sincere. She swallowed. "I don't understand." The Earl stepped closer, lowering his voice so only she could hear. "You needn't understand. You need only accept." Elora hesitated, her nerves riotous. She had no idea why a man as powerful and distant as the Earl would take notice of her, let alone intervene in this humiliating moment. But something in his eyes, something steady and unexpectedly gentle, kept her from refusing. She placed her hand in his. His fingers closed around hers, warm, firm, and certain. "Very well," she whispered. The Earl guided her toward the dance floor without another glance at the stunned crowd. They parted like water as he led her through the center of the room, the weight of 100 whispers following behind them. Elora's hand trembled slightly in his. She hoped he didn't notice. He did. "Do not be nervous," he murmured. "I don't bite." She almost smiled. "That is not what London says." A faint, almost invisible smirk touched his lips. "London says many things, most of them nonsense." As the music resumed around them, the Earl placed his hand gently at her waist, and Elora could feel the heat rising to her cheeks. She had danced before, but never under such scrutiny, never with a man so commanding. "Why did you do that?" she finally asked, her voice soft but steady. He met her gaze directly. His eyes were clear, intense, and entirely focused on her. "Because I refuse to stand by while others tear you apart for sport." Elora blinked. "Then you pity me." "No," he said firmly. "I respect you." The word stunned her more than the dance offer. Respect from him. Why? Before she could ask, the Earl added, "And because someone needed to put Lady Morland in her place." Elora felt a startled laugh rise in her chest, though she quickly suppressed it. As they moved across the floor, smooth, controlled, perfectly in step, Elora realized something she had not expected. With his hand on hers, with his calm presence anchoring her, the embarrassment she felt earlier began to fade, replaced by something unfamiliar. Something warm, something dangerous. The Earl of Ravenshire had stepped into her quiet, invisible life without warning, and nothing about this night, or her future, would ever be the same again. The Earl breaks a rule he has lived by for years. Elora Whitcomb had never danced with a man who left her unable to form a single sensible thought. But when the music stopped and the Earl's hand slipped gently away from her waist, she felt an inexplicable hollow ache, as if something vital had just been removed. The ballroom seemed louder. Once the dance ended, people whispered behind fans, behind gloves, behind polite smiles. They thought she couldn't see. She felt every stare like a pinprick. The Earl turned toward her, his posture relaxed but unmistakably protective. "You handled that well," he said. "I could say the same of you," Elora replied, though her voice came out softer than she intended. His gaze lowered to her hands. "You're trembling." She flushed and clasped them behind her back. "Only slightly." "Because of me?" he asked. She hesitated. If she lied, he would know. "Yes," she admitted. Something flickered in his expression, something unreadable but not unkind. Before he could respond, Lady Clarissa Morland approached, her face arranged in a smile that barely masked her disbelief. "My lord," she said sweetly, "what an unexpected sight. You rarely dance." "I make exceptions," the Earl replied, his tone cool but not rude. Clarissa's eyes darted to Elora, narrowing ever so slightly. "For Miss Whitcomb?" she asked. "Yes," he said without hesitation. The simple answer, calm, direct, sent a wave of stunned murmurs through the room. Clarissa regained her composure quickly, but her smile had soured. "Well, I suppose even the most refined gentlemen have charitable impulses." The Earl's jaw hardened. "Lady Clarissa," he said evenly, "insulting someone in my presence is unwise." Clarissa blinked, taken aback. I meant no insult." "Then choose your words with care," he answered. She paled, offered a stiff curtsy, and retreated. Elora stood frozen, unsure whether to laugh, hide, or simply collapse from disbelief. "You defended me," she said quietly. "I simply stated the truth," he replied, "but you hardly know me." He studied her face for a long moment before answering. "That is not entirely true." Elora stiffened. "What do you mean, Miss Whitcomb?" he said, his voice softening. "I've observed you longer than you realize." Her breath caught. "I've watched you endure whispers with grace, cruelty with dignity, and loneliness with remarkable strength. London may overlook you, but I do not." Elora felt heat rush to her cheeks, an unfamiliar, almost frightening warmth. "I didn't know," she whispered. "You weren't meant to know," he replied. "I do not make a habit of approaching people. In truth, I avoid it when I can. It keeps entanglements at bay. And yet tonight you approached me." "Tonight," he said slowly, "I broke more than one of my own rules." Elora's heartbeat stumbled. "But why? Why me?" His answer came without hesitation. Because you looked like someone who had been wounded far too many times, and I couldn't tolerate one more strike aimed at you. Her throat tightened. That's not a reason to involve yourself, my lord. It is for me. Elora forced herself to look away. She felt unsteady, like the ground beneath her feet had shifted, like everything she knew about her place in society had been rewritten in a matter of minutes. Across the room, her aunt watched with wide eyes, clearly unsure whether to faint or celebrate. My lord, Elora said gently, people are staring. Let them, he replied. Her breath hitched. You don't care what they think. A shadow passed over his expression. Not anger, something else, weariness, experience, pain. I stopped caring about society's opinions years ago, he said. They judge everything, your wealth, your mistakes, your grief. Yet they know nothing, they understand nothing. He paused before adding, and I refuse to live by their rules. Before Elora could reply, a servant approached with a polite bow. Lord Ravenshire, His Grace the Duke is asking for you in the study. The Earl nodded. Tell him I'll be there shortly. The servant left. Elora stepped back instinctively. You must go. I don't want to keep you. His eyes softened. You are not keeping me. If anything, you are the first person I've spoken to tonight with any desire to continue speaking. Her heart fluttered in a way she had never experienced. He leaned in slightly, not improperly, not intimately, but close enough that she felt the warmth of his voice. Miss Whitcomb, may I escort you tomorrow in the gardens? I take a walk every morning before the household rises. If you'd join me, I would be. He paused, searching for the right word. Honored. Elora froze. You're asking me to meet you alone. That would cause talk. Only if someone sees, he said. She tried to breathe normally. Is this wise? Probably not. Then why ask? A faint smile touched his lips. Because wise choices rarely lead to anything meaningful. Elora's pulse quickened. And what would this lead to? She whispered before she could stop herself. His answer was softer than a breath. Something I haven't allowed myself in a very long time. The words sank into her like warmth spreading through cold skin. He stepped back slowly, giving her the space to breathe again. I will meet you by the East Gardens at sunrise, he said. If you do not come, I will understand. And with that, the Earl turned and walked away. Tall, composed, utterly unreadable, leaving Elora standing beneath the chandelier with her heart racing and her world shifting in ways she could not yet comprehend. She didn't know if she should go tomorrow, but she also knew she wouldn't be able to stop herself. The Earl shows her the one place no one has ever seen. Laura Whitcomb did not sleep. She lay awake in her narrow bed, staring at the ceiling as dawn crept slowly across the room. Every thought returned to one impossible truth. The Earl of Ravenshire had asked to see her, alone, at sunrise. Her mind raced through every warning, every lecture, every social rule her aunt had drilled into her since childhood. Young ladies did not meet men in gardens. They did not walk unchaperoned, and they certainly did not accept invitations from men who had the power to ruin them with a single careless act. But when the sky began to pale, Elora found herself rising anyway. She dressed simply, an ivory morning gown, a soft wrap, and her hair tied back in a modest ribbon. Nothing that invited gossip, nothing that suggested she had spent half the night imagining what he might say, or what she might feel. By the time she stepped quietly out of the back door, the estate was wrapped in early light. The air was cool, the grass damp beneath her shoes, and birds were just beginning to stir. She told herself she was only going to look. If he wasn't there, she would return immediately. But he was there. The Earl stood by the eastern rose garden, hands clasped behind his back, facing the orchard. He wore no coat, only a dark waistcoat and rolled sleeves, as though this hour belonged solely to his private self, not the polished version society knew. When he heard her footsteps, he turned. For a moment neither spoke. Then his expression softened, a rare, unguarded warmth that startled her more than anything he had said at the ball. You came, he said quietly. I almost didn't, she admitted. I know. That's why I came early. Her brows lifted. To wait longer. To be absolutely certain I would be here if you chose to come at all. Elora felt heat rise to her cheeks. She had never been important enough to anyone for such a gesture. Walk with me, he asked, offering his hand. Not to take, but simply extended toward the path, a silent invitation. She nodded, and they began walking side by side. For several minutes, neither spoke. It wasn't awkward, it was peaceful. An unfamiliar peace, but a welcome one. Finally, she asked, "Do you always walk alone?" "Yes," he replied. "It is the only time of day I'm not surrounded by expectation. Expectation of what I must be," he said. "An earl, a decision maker, a man who does not err, a man who does not feel." "You feel," she said gently. "I've seen it." He gave a soft, almost surprised laugh. "And what have you seen?" "Kindness," she said, "measured restraint. A man who protects even when it costs him nothing." His step slowed. "No one has ever described me that way." "Then no one has looked closely enough." Something in his expression shifted, a quiet, unsettled recognition, as if her words had reached a place he'd kept locked away. They walked until the garden path opened into a secluded clearing she had never seen before. A small stone archway stood there, covered in climbing ivy and half-forgotten roses. "What is this place?" she whispered. "A part of the estate no one visits anymore," he said. "It belonged to my mother." Elora stopped. "You're showing me something personal." "Yes." "Why?" He met her eyes. "Because I trust you." The simplicity of the statement unraveled something in her chest. He stepped closer to the archway and brushed a leaf from one of the carved stones. "She used to sit here every morning," he said, "before she became ill before." He didn't finish the sentence. Elora spoke softly. "You don't have to tell me." He turned toward her, the morning light catching in his eyes. "You're the first person I've wanted to tell." Her breath caught. He continued, voice low. "After she died, I locked away every part of her, her rooms, her journals, this place. I told myself it was strength, but really, I couldn't bear to feel anything anymore." Elora felt her throat tighten. "And now," he said slowly, "you make me feel everything I swore I would never feel again." Her heart thudded painfully. "Is that a good thing?" she whispered. He stepped toward her, closer than politeness allowed, yet not touching her. "It terrifies me," he said. "But yes, it is good." Silence settled between them, not empty, not uncertain, full of something warm and quietly powerful. Then, the Earl did something she did not expect. He removed his signet ring, a gesture no nobleman made lightly. He held it out, not to give, but to show. "This ring represents everything I am expected to be," he said. "Unshakable, unmovable, unreachable." He looked at her, really looked at her. "And yet here I am, showing it to you as if you are the only person who might understand why it feels so heavy." Elora swallowed hard. "I do understand," she whispered. He closed his hand around the ring again. "You make it feel lighter." For a moment, she thought he might reach for her hand, but he stopped himself. "Barely." "Miss Whitcomb," he said softly, "if our walks continue, it will cause talk. I know. And if I continue to seek your company, people will assume an intention. I know. And if I decide," he stopped, searching her eyes. She stepped closer, close enough that their breaths mingled in the cool morning air. "Then decide," she whispered. He exhaled shakily, the sound more vulnerable than anything she'd ever heard from him. "I already have." Before she could ask what he meant, footsteps echoed from the garden path. They separated instantly, too quickly in fact, which only made it look more suspicious. A maid appeared breathlessly. "My lord, Miss Whitcomb, your aunt is searching for you both. She looks alarmed." Elora flushed a deep shade of red. The Earl's jaw tightened. "Tell her Miss Whitcomb was taking morning air under my escort." "But, my lord, she believes." "Tell her," he repeated firmly, "that she has nothing to fear." The maid nodded and hurried off. Elora looked at him, startled. "You're defending me again." "Not defending," he corrected gently. "Protecting." "And why would you protect me?" He held her gaze steadily. "Because, Elora, you matter to me, more than you should, more than I ever expected." Her heart felt too full, too fragile. "Tomorrow?" he asked quietly. She nodded without hesitation. "Yes, then I will be here." After that night in the garden, something unspoken grew between Evelyn Hart and Rowan Sinclair, the Earl of Blackthorn. It was not a promise, not a declaration, not even a confession, only a tension, a pull, a quiet awareness that neither of them truly understood, and both of them tried, painfully, to ignore. But the world did not ignore it. Nor did Lady Cassandra. By the time Evelyn entered the morning salon the next day, the whispers had already spread like wildfire. Two cousins by the fireplace pretended to read letters. Lady Maribel dropped her teacup when she saw Evelyn walk in. A maid curtsied with suspicious enthusiasm, the kind servants reserved for fresh scandal. Evelyn sensed it all. She kept her chin lifted, but her heart twisted when she heard two debutantes whisper. The Earl was seen with her, in the garden. He never looks at anyone like that. She's unsuitable. No dowry, no title. She must have trapped him. The words stabbed deeper than she wished to admit. Evelyn had never wanted attention, let alone scandal. She especially did not want to be seen as someone who schemed to catch a titled man. It felt insulting, not because she wanted the Earl, but because she understood how society worked. Rowan was the Earl of Blackthorn. She was simply Evelyn Hart. Nothing about them matched, nothing about them could. Rowan, for his part, was no calmer. If Evelyn had spent her morning in discomfort, Rowan spent his in complete turmoil. He'd woken with her voice echoing in his mind. Her laugh, her teasing remark, the way she had looked at him as if she saw past the Earl and into the man. It unsettled him. It intrigued him. It terrified him. So instead of facing her, he buried himself in the Earl's study. Piles of estate papers became shields. Correspondence from Parliament served as a distraction. Even a three-hour discussion about grain taxes seemed preferable to confronting what he felt. His valet, Morris, watched him fumble through the morning in a rare state of disarray. "Are you unwell, my lord?" he asked carefully. "I am perfectly fine," Rowan lied, while wearing mismatched cufflinks and forgetting to button his waistcoat. Morris said nothing. Servants knew better than to comment when an Earl was fighting a losing battle with his own emotions. Lady Cassandra had been waiting for her moment. She found Evelyn on the terrace, pretending to admire the roses, while very clearly trying to avoid certain people. "My dear Evelyn," Cassandra said in a sugar-coated voice that always meant danger, "I hear you were quite occupied last night." Evelyn inhaled slowly. "If you have something to say, Lady Cassandra, you may speak plainly." "Oh," Cassandra smirked. "Then plainly, you should understand your place. Men of Rowan's status may offer attention, but they do not offer futures to women like you." Evelyn felt heat rise in her chest. "Women like me?" "Yes," Cassandra replied sweetly. "The ones who are easily ignored." Evelyn's fingers tightened around the railing. She refused to let Cassandra see her hurt. "I assure you," she said calmly, "I seek nothing from the Earl." Cassandra leaned closer. "Then stay away from him." Before Evelyn could answer, a deep voice cut through the air. "Lady Cassandra." They both turned. Rowan stood in the doorway, composed, unreadable, and unmistakably displeased. Cassandra straightened immediately. "My lord, I was simply leaving," Rowan said. Her face paled. "Of course, my lord." Cassandra left faster than dignity allowed. Evelyn exhaled shakily. Rowan stepped beside her. "Did she upset you?" Rowan frowned. "It matters to me." His words made her still. "Why?" she asked softly. Rowan hesitated. The Earl of Blackthorn rarely hesitated, but with Evelyn, he always did. "I do not like seeing you hurt," he said finally. Evelyn swallowed. "You shouldn't concern yourself with me, my lord. It complicates things. You are not." "No one, Evelyn." She shook her head. "Society sees it differently. It will judge you. It will judge me. And it will make your life impossible." Rowan held her gaze. "I am not afraid of society. You should be." A long silence followed, heavy, charged, trembling with all the things they could not say. Finally, Rowan exhaled. "If you wish me to keep my distance, I will. Only say the word." Evelyn looked away. "I do not wish it," she whispered. Barely audible. Rowan froze. Then, very softly, too softly for anyone else to hear, "Nor do I." As fate would have it, that was exactly when a guest opened the terrace door. Two figures standing far too close. The Earl leaning toward a woman with no title, Evelyn looking up at him with flushed cheeks. It took 5 seconds for the scandal to spread. It would take 5 days for London to recover. It would take 5 lifetimes for Rowan to forget the way her voice trembled when she told him she didn't want distance. The scandal did not merely spread, it erupted. By midday, the guests at Hawthorne Manor behaved as if Evelyn Hart had personally declared war on propriety. Conversations that had nothing to do with her suddenly included her name. Teacups rattled more violently. Chaperones hovered near their daughters as if Rowan might look at any of them and cause another catastrophe. Evelyn felt the weight of every stare. Rowan felt the fury of every whispered accusation. And Lady Cassandra, of course, felt delighted. Evelyn walked into the grand dining hall because she had no other choice. Luncheon attendance was expected. Her steps were steady, her posture perfect, but inside she felt like a child navigating a battlefield. Snippets of conversation reached her as she passed. She's practically begging for his attention. No woman of breeding behaves so boldly. Her mother should have taught her restraint. Perhaps she thinks the Earl will actually marry her. The last one hurt the most, not because she believed it. She didn't, but because it exposed the truth she tried so hard to ignore. She liked him more than she should, more than she dared, and the very idea of being with him felt impossible. She took her seat at the far end of the table, where unmarried ladies without rank were usually placed, near enough to watch the titled heirs, far enough to remind her she did not belong among them. Then Rowan entered. The entire room shifted. Rowan was not subtle. He wasn't even pretending to be subtle. He walked straight past all the eligible daughters, the political alliances, the families he was expected to please. He walked past Lady Cassandra, who smiled like a woman expecting a proposal. He did not glance at a single one of them. He sat at Evelyn's table. She nearly dropped her spoon. "My lord," she whispered, mortified by the looks now exploding through the room. "Miss Hart." He spoke calmly, but his jaw was tight. "You are causing a scene," she whispered. Rowan's eyes didn't move from her face. "I am correcting one." Evelyn's heart stuttered. "You must not. I mean, you truly must not sit here." "I choose where I sit," he said. "And with whom?" Their conversation was quiet, but the impact was deafening. Lady Cassandra's face turned a remarkable shade of cold, controlled outrage. An older Marchioness whispered, "He's ruined her." Another murmured, "No, she's ruined herself, for thinking she could hold the Earl's favor." Evelyn wanted to disappear. Rowan wanted to burn the entire room to the ground. After the meal, Rowan stood and extended a hand, not touching her, but offering. Evelyn froze. "I cannot be seen walking with you." "You already have been," he replied. "Allow me to continue ruining your day." Despite herself, she laughed softly. "Please do not jest about scandal. It is the only way I can endure it." He led her to a quiet corner of the library. Doors open, enough visibility to avoid further gossip, but still private. The moment they were out of earshot, Evelyn spoke first. "You cannot protect me like this. It only makes things worse." "Let them talk," Rowan said. "I care what they say," she admitted softly. That silenced him. Evelyn continued, voice trembling. "Not because I believe them, but because I fear what they will force you to do." He frowned. "Force me? You are an Earl. You cannot risk your reputation for someone like me." "Someone unlike you," he repeated sharply. "Evelyn, do you truly think I care for titles?" "You must," she whispered. "You have responsibilities, a name, a lineage. You are meant to marry a woman who brings fortune, influence, or alliances, not a woman who brings nothing." He stepped closer, eyes unreadable. "You bring more than you know." Evelyn shook her head. "Rowan, you are being reckless." Rowan exhaled slowly. "I know." "Then why?" she whispered. Rowan answered without hesitation. "Because every time I am near you, I forget what I am supposed to be." Her breath caught. "You forget being an Earl. I forget being anything but a man who wants you." Evelyn's knees weakened, but before she could respond, a shadow moved in the doorway. Lady Cassandra, listening, watching. Her expression turned ice, cold and victorious. Evelyn saw her, and her stomach dropped. Rowan did too, and his face hardened. "Leave us," he said. to Cassandra, voice sharp enough to cut steel. But Cassandra only smiled. "Of course, my lord, do continue." She curtsied slightly. "After all, London will be very eager to hear this conversation." She left without another word. Evelyn felt sick. Rowan felt murderous. When Cassandra disappeared down the hall, Evelyn spoke with a shaking voice. "It's over." "No," Rowan said firmly. "She heard everything. She heard nothing. She heard nothing she has any right to use. She will ruin me." Rowan's voice dropped to something dangerous. "I will not allow it." Evelyn's eyes filled, though she fought the tears. "You cannot control the ton. They will decide my fate and yours." Rowan looked at her as if the world narrowed to only the two of them. "Then let them decide. I am done hiding." Evelyn stared at him, stunned, breathless. "Rowan, what are you going to do?" He did not blink. "Whatever it takes to keep you." Her heart broke and healed in the same moment. She whispered, "You cannot mean that." He stepped closer, not touching her, but close enough to steal her breath. "I have never meant anything more." Evelyn closed her eyes, because she knew now. The Earl of Blackthorn was not only willing to defy society, he was preparing to declare war on it. The storm did not break with thunder, it broke with Cassandra's voice. By the next morning, London society already buzzed with the newest piece of poison wrapped in satin. The Earl is compromising a woman far below him. He intends to marry for affection. How foolish. The girl is ambitious, dangerous, sly. And the worst, she trapped him. Evelyn Hart's name now carried the weight of a scandal she never invited. But Rowan had reached his limit. He did not hide. He did not retreat. He did not allow a single whisper to go unchallenged. Instead, he did the most reckless, most unprecedented, most Rowan thing imaginable. He summoned every major family staying at Hawthorne Manor into the grand drawing room. Dozens of nobles, every gossip, every rumor, monger, even Cassandra, who positioned herself at the front, like a woman preparing to take the victory she believed already hers. Evelyn stood near the door, terrified, unsure why Rowan had asked her to be there. Until Rowan entered, and the room fell silent. Rowan didn't bow, didn't smile, didn't soften his voice. He simply said, "You have insulted a woman in my presence. You have slandered her. You have spoken lies in my house. This ends today." A murmur rippled through the room. Rowan continued, gaze sweeping over them like cold fire. "You degrade Miss Hart for her lack of title, her lack of fortune, her lack of what you consider proper value." He stepped forward. "But let me be very clear. Her worth is greater than any dowry, greater than any lineage, greater than the approval of those who dare shame her while hiding behind whispers." Cassandra's eyes widened with fury. Someone else gasped. Someone else muttered, "He cannot speak like that." But Rowan wasn't finished. Cassandra stepped forward, her voice honeyed and lethal. "My lord, surely you cannot defend a scandal that she encouraged. A respectable woman would never have." Rowan cut in, voice like ice. "Finish that sentence, and you will regret it for the remainder of your fashionable little life." Cassandra froze. Rowan turned back to the room. "I blame none of you for being shocked. What I do blame you for is believing that your world collapses the moment a nobleman frees himself from your expectations. Evelyn Hart is not one of them." Her breath caught. Simone dropped their fan. Cassandra almost fainted. Rowan stepped toward Evelyn slowly, deliberately, as if approaching something sacred. Her heart beat so loudly she could barely hear the room. When he stopped before her, he didn't kneel. He bowed his head, a gesture of respect, of devotion, of choice. "Evelyn," he said softly, "I cannot change who I am. I cannot erase the expectations that come with my title. But I can refuse to let them dictate my happiness." Tears pricked her eyes as he continued, "I ask for nothing from you but honesty, and if your heart does not return mine, I will step back this very moment. But if it does, if even a part of you wants a life with me, then let the world talk. I will stand by you through every storm." Evelyn's hands trembled. The room held its breath. Cassandra looked as if her soul was leaving her body. Evelyn whispered, voice cracking, "Rowan, I never wished for any of this. I only wish that you would see me, and somehow you always did. He lifted her hand gently, carefully, as if waiting for permission. Then tell me, he said, so I may silence every doubt. Do you want me beside you? Her answer came without hesitation. Yes. Rowan exhaled, as though she had returned life to him. He pressed her hand to his chest. And the room, stunned into silence, watched history rewrite itself. Cassandra stormed out. Several families left in outrage. Others remained, quietly altering their opinions the moment the Earl made his desires clear. Evelyn became the woman the ton would whisper about for years, not because she caused scandal, but because she survived it, with dignity, with courage, with the unwavering devotion of a man they all believed untouchable. Later, when the manor quieted, and the chaos had settled into a strange new order, Rowan found Evelyn standing on the terrace. Are you afraid? He asked softly. She didn't lie. Yes, as am I, Rowan admitted, but I would fear far more a life where you were not beside me. She looked up at him. I don't know if I'll ever be ready for your world. Then we will face it slowly, he said, taking her hand. And together. Evelyn swallowed, emotion thick in her throat. Rowan, what happens now? He smiled, not the charming, guarded smile society knew, but a real one. Now, he said. I ask your family for permission. She blinked. For your hand. He kissed her forehead. And for your future. Evelyn closed her eyes, and for the first time since the scandal began, she felt safe.